Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about where the carriers were at the outbreak of World War II. This is an Avenger torpedo bomber. It had a 3-man crew, a pilot, a bombardier, and it also had a gun turret. Let's go around here so you can see it. See that's where the third guy sat. And he could also go down there and do maintenance all throughout the aircraft, which is what he did. A lot of his job. I mean, he was supposed to sit there and watch and look for the enemy, but he also had to go down and. If you ever looked at the old World War I footage of World War I bombers, they didn't have that many, but they did get some long-range ones at the end. You had a guy out there actually walking out on the wing to lubricate the engines out on the wing while it was in gear. So he would be doing stuff like that. They had access to the internal engines up here from down there, and sometimes one of the three would, outside of the pilot, would go down there and could actually do maintenance on these planes. But anyway, so this was our premier bomber off of a carrier in World War II, and like to talk a little bit about FDR's duplicity in the start of the war. So FDR got elected is that term saying, well, I'm going to keep us out of war, and we're not going to get involved in foreign entanglements. And what actually happened was, for 2 years before that, they were goading the Japanese into war. They pulled the carriers out of Pearl Harbor, and they left all the battleships in there. Now, what you don't realize is all those battleships at Pearl Harbor were World War I battleships, and of all the ships sunk at Pearl Harbor, only 3 of them never rose again. The rest of them were fixed, and actually, I think even the last one that they fixed participated in the shelling of Guadalcanal. Remember, they were in Pearl Harbor. It's like getting beat up in an emergency room. If you're going to have to get beat up, you're in a very shallow water area, and you're right next to a facility to refloat it. I mean, they were in shallow water. If they would have had an hour to prepare for the attack, they would have still gotten chopped up, and they would have been in deep water, and they would have totally lost that fleet. So there's some unanswered questions there about it. But anyway, yeah, so this is a mighty fine. See the access door down there, and they had arrestor cables back then to catch the planes. See at the back, that's the arrestor cable. But back then they didn't have steam launched, or as they have now, the EMP launched planes off the carriers. They just had to rev them up and point them into the wind. So anyway, yeah, these were they could carry different bombs, but the ship killer was this big Mark 13 here, and a torpedo is basically a guided mine. It had about a 500-pound Torpex charge on there, and it would hit below the water line, and that torpedo bombers sink ships. Regular bombers do damage to the top. They don't sink the ship as a general rule unless they hit a magazine. And here's some of the depth charges. They would use these for submarines if they could spot them, because remember, if you're up in the air and the water's pretty clear, you can see a sub pretty deep down, the shadow of it. So they would use those to try to get the subs. So anyway, check out Gary Victor's book on Pearl Harbor. he started off as a skeptic. He was trying to debunk the fact that Roosevelt knew about it, and he ended up proving the fact that we encouraged the fight. Thank you. I'm out.